This is not a ride-sharing video. I repeat, this is not a ride-sharing video. For some of you folks who watch the repeats on YouTube, understand they're a couple days behind. These are Trump MAGA related videos, and that alone triggers a hell of a lot of censorship, being blocked and being banned. Simply having this damn hat behind me can get me banned on a hell of a lot of platforms, and often does. So that's for the audience watching the repeats. What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. We're going to be talking about something, and this is in relations to, obviously, the seismic ruling by the Supreme Court. We're talking about the Republican agenda. What is the Republican agenda? Because all sorts of accusations are being made based on what happened. Now, before we get into the actual topic, I may have to reset the live because the numbers it shows for some reason that TikTok is doing something. We should have well over 100 people in here by now. Let's see if it's ticking up. All right, so what we're going to be asking right off the bat is, many folks on the left, even some independents, are suggesting that the Republican agenda is to move us backwards. However, my beloved MAGA believes that the agenda that is being promoted by the right is what is in the best interest of this damn country. That we have gotten too far off track, moved too far to the left, began acting too much like Europe, and that we need to home or rein in things. So what I want to find out from the folks, and that's what we're here to discuss, is what, in your opinion, whether you are on the right or the left, what is your analysis of what you believe the Republican agenda is? Should the GOP regain power in 2024? Now, obviously, this is coming from a place of the Supreme Court recently overturning Roe v. Wade. Affirmative action has now been greatly altered, if not eliminated, as of today. Many folks are believing that the religious exemption that they're going to be ruling on tomorrow is another example, such as I'm a Catholic. I don't want to make a cake for an LGBT couple, a religious exemption. In addition to that, some folks, you can call it fear-mongering, or maybe some folks believe this is an actual real track that the GOP is headed for. And that is reversing the ability for same-sex marriage, preventing same-sex couples, going backwards on that. What do you think? Do you think the Republicans are trying to basically overturn the right of same-sex couples to get married? We're going to talk about that as well, because this is what folks believe. I want to hear from you if you think that is right or wrong. And last but not least, probably further down the road, if it could ever happen at all, but there are people who believe ultimately their goal is to even upset the ability to marry outside of your race, interracial marriage. That just became legal in the 1960s. It's very similar to Roe v. Wade around that time as well in the 70s. So there are folks who believe that they may be on that path. Do you believe any of this? Do you believe the Republicans want to turn us back in that direction? Maybe you do, and you believe it's what the country needs. That's what we're going to discuss. All right, nevertheless, the program is and always will remain MAGA friendly. MAGA are my preferred guests. Nevertheless, liberals are always welcome as well. We're going to go with the same spiel we give all the time. We don't block, ban, or censor you for your commentary. You don't have to agree with the host. I don't censor or limit your time simply because you and I disagree. You have free speech, First Amendment rights on the program all day, every day. Going to the box. You are the GOAT. That's an awesome comment to start off with. Thank you. I'm assuming that's a goat and not a sheep. Of course, I don't believe that. Only an idiot would believe it. Well, let me respond to that, Shiza, and I'll keep it moving. But in regards to suggesting that the Republicans are going to roll back this stuff, and for someone to say only an idiot would believe that, I've been debating politics 20 plus years. You know how long folks on the left were called idiots for suggesting that the Republicans would roll back Roe versus Wade? Where are we now in 2023? Even when President Trump was trying to put in Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh and things like that. Folks were still saying the liberals were being disingenuous, suggesting that those Supreme Court justices would take part in rolling back Roe v. Wade. So I hear your point. We're an idiot if we predict this, but strike one has already happened. Looking in the comments, oh man, just save yourself. Dems worshiped Obama. Kevin Bennett, you really believe that? All of the hip-hop artists and folks suggesting that Barack Obama didn't do a damn thing for the black community, didn't do enough for Chicago. There's plenty of criticism of Obama coming from African Americans and liberals alike. Now, if you want to talk about worship, what do you think about Trump? Do you think there are some worshipers of President Trump? Let us know. We're going to go straight to the box. Tap the screen. Get your boy up to 5,000 likes. Appreciate that. Murder SRT number 8. Good. You got to explain the name to me. Murder SRT number 8. I would love to hear that name. I don't know if it's going to let him in, but it's facts, says Tito Trucker. What part is facts? Let me know. Obama's presidency in here. There's more drama in here than Obama's presidency. Fair enough, because some would suggest there was not a lot of drama during Obama's presidency. Oscar V, appreciate the rose garden. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you very much. A business should not have to furnish services they don't want to, regardless of religion. All right, fair enough. And that is what we're headed to in regards to the religious, whereas businesses may start doing that. Simply saying, I don't want to deal with the LGBT community. What if a religion wants to exempt African Americans? You believe that should be okay too? This is why we're asking the question, do you believe the Republican agenda could possibly roll the country back? You're stating that you believe if a religious institution does not want to deal with people, they shouldn't have to. If you did not want to deal with, say, Hispanics, just deem your organization as being religious as well. I don't care if you're a plumber. Well, I'm a Catholic plumber. I don't want to go into homes of Hispanics. You're kind of opening up the door for folks to be able to use that as a loophole to get by. No, a lot of religions started in Africa. A lot of religions started on every continent of the planet. I would also submit to you this in regards to the statement that religion started in Africa. When the Africans were brought here, forced labor, they were not allowed to bring their religion with them. Christianity was beaten into the slave trade. All of them folks that came here, whatever religion they believed in, they couldn't practice that shit on the American mainland. Christianity was beaten into them. So I don't know what, say, my ancestors, for instance. I don't know what religion they may have had before they came here, because they were not allowed to practice it upon arrival. Looking in the comments, that's true. I can agree with you on that, says Assault. Thank you. There was drama. The orange man spent much drama trying to prove that Obama was born in the U.S. Yeah. You believe twins, 5'7". You believe Trump was trying to prove that Barack Obama was born in America? Did I hear that right? What? Use religion to condone hate, shame on you. Exactly the point we're making, Mel. That's why we're asking, what do you believe the Republican agenda is? If you allow a religious institution to pick and choose who they will serve based on their religion, they can pick and choose not to serve people that actually may be based on hate and mask it as religious. It is as simple as that. Just simply say, we are a religion. This is what we believe in. And what if I don't believe in serving Jewish people? I don't believe in serving African Americans or white people, whatever the case may be. Point is, allowing a religious exemption could be allowing hate. It could actually be allowing hate. I'm assuming a savvy individual with a few good lawyers behind them could easily turn this into what they want to turn it into. Looking in a true Christian wouldn't discriminate based on ethnicity, says USA Mama. Well, when you look at all of this discrimination that is taking place in this country over the couple centuries we've been around, and you would have to assume there hasn't been many true Christians in America for most of its 250 plus year existence. Throughout the slave trade, most slave owners were going to church on Sundays. You don't think they were discriminating? So if what you're saying is true, there's not a hell of a lot of true Christians in this country. Why do you have the red hat? Curious George, the man with the yellow hat. I always have that question asked. Simply put, I'll say it again for the umpteenth time. I strongly believe, based on my own analysis, conservatives, Republicans, and particularly MAGA do not get a fair shake in the media. Even though I lean left, the purpose of the hat is to let MAGA know, conservatives and Republicans as well. This is a MAGA-friendly program. It always will remain that way. You will never be blocked, banned, or censored, or even have your time limited in the lights, simply because you have a difference of opinion to yours truly. That happens, particularly in the mainstream media. You identify as MAGA or Republican, and they don't let you speak. Even though I am liberal, I make the solemn promise anyone identifying as a Republican, MAGA, or a conservative will never be prevented from stating their point, even if it is totally opposite of what I think. That's the purpose of the hat. It is a MAGA-friendly program. Looking in the comments, bro, quit talking and go shine that head. You're watching a political program with a guy, and you're looking at the guy's head. Really? Okay. You like head? Hopefully a woman asked you that. All right, looking in the comments, what does MAGA mean? Obviously, it's an acronym for what's on the hat. How do you feel about the ruling today from the Supreme Court? That's what we're talking about. The program is, do you believe the Republican agenda could possibly be rolling us back? Some folks are talking about how America was in the 1950s, 1920s. Do you see America being curtailed that way if the Republicans regain power in 2024? Let me go to the box. Was having a little trouble earlier. I don't know if it's going to work now. Let's see. Is liberal in his name and gets all the name calling because they see the hat. Bobby Nestor, I appreciate that sentiment. That is absolutely true. Even though I go by the handsome liberal, most of the folks, particularly those who are calling me a Sambo, Uncle Tom, what else they call Uncle Ruckus, a sellout, they look like me. There are folks that look like me. They don't listen to the program. They don't hear any of our ideals. We transpire back and forth. They see the hat and they all of a sudden start yelling these racial epithets. Farlow, good afternoon.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing real good. Doing good. Now, the question we asking is, we're talking about the Republican agenda. Do you think there's any possibility, because some folks on the left are saying this, that the Republicans intend to roll us back to a darker era in American history? Do you see any of that?
I don't. I think what the Republicans are trying to do is feed on the libertarian message, which they always do, but they don't deliver on the actual policy. We're built on a republic, which means the individual. And when groups start discriminating, that's when the problem comes in. But if an individual has a preference, there's a thin line between preference and bigotry. We got to, then the courts will decide that.
So you believe, like libertarians, the Republicans are aiming for smaller government and letting the individual do whatever they want to do with themselves, as long as it doesn't injure anybody else?
They're going to run on that. They're not going to govern as such.
Oh. So how do you think they're going to govern? Do you think they're trying to turn this country around towards the,
No, they're gonna give to their base, feed meat to their base, say things that they're going to do. They may cut taxes. They've done that very well. I don't know what they're going to do with the Ukraine situation. That's yet to be seen. So on their agenda is get the books out of the schools, leave the children alone. That's what they're running on right now. That might be an
what do you
effective
mean? What do you mean when you
strategy.
say? What do you mean when you say get the books out of the schools?
Like in Florida, what DeSantis did, the books that they think that are critical race theory, things of that nature, and the drag queen situation. All they have to do is say, stay away from the children, and some people are triggered by that, and they'll
Then
vote
yeah,
Republican
but
just because of that.
yeah, but what's baffling me is how is that not, as what I just suggested, turning us back in time. That's the way it used to be. Is you couldn't talk about a hell of a lot of racism or LGBT stuff in schools. That's the way it used to
Well, what they're saying is that the Democrats are trying to ram it down our throats. The Democrats have a problem with messaging. They're not trying to do that, but the Republicans can message because they message very well. That's one thing they do very well. If they can message that's what they're trying to do, then that's maybe an effective strategy.
But that's what they were saying back in the 1950s. Is you're trying to ram interracial marriage or ram all of this stuff down our throat. It's the same message. When interracial marriage was up for debate, that was the point. If you allow a couple from different races to get married, you're going to confuse the children and put children in harm. It's the same message.
I can agree to a point, but the problem is it's not the actual LGBTQ or in whatever the rest of the alphabet is pushing this. It's the government, the Democrats governments that's doing that. They're saying, "Hey, we're going to do what we're going to do, but you don't need to put it in anybody's face." They're thinking that we're behind you pushing this, and we're not. They'll agree to certain things they'll say, but that doesn't mean they agree with their overall message.
Okay.
Like
So
for instance, people say, "Oh, go ahead."
let me go down this list here, and I want to, because this is some of the things that's leading folks to believe or suggest that they're trying to roll us back. Now, I got 5 different ways of life we've kind of gotten used to that folks are suggesting if the Republicans gain power, they would take away. Number one is Roe v. Wade, the right for a woman to choose. Now, I'm going to assume, do believe that if the Republicans had their way, they're going to remove this right, correct?
They put it back to the states, which would be libertarian. But I agree with you. I think they were trying to go further. They should have stopped that, bringing it back to the states. That should be good enough. But it's not going to be for their base. Their base wants it all states on one accord,
Also,
no
but
abortion.
even if
That's not
you,
going to happen.
yeah, but even if you give it back to the states, you have to admit that all of the Republican states are going to take it away. So they're still saying our goal is to get rid of this. We'll let it be if there are states that we don't have control of. But all of the Republican states are pushing to make this outlawed.
That's true in Alabama. It is outlawed, but other states it's not as harsh. It varies from state to state. No one state is the same as each other. Like Tennessee's is different from Alabama's, for example.
But they all have limitations. Every Republican state just
That's
about
correct.
has, since Roe v. Wade was rolled back, every Republican state has taken away some ability to have an abortion, whether they limited it or got rid of it outright. They have all taken some of this away, taken bites out of it.
I agree.
No.
To a standard, they have taken away abortion, especially in
Right.
Alabama. It's totally outlawed here. There's no exception here.
All
The
right.
other states are exceptions.
Number two is obviously affirmative action. I mean, I'm going to assume once again you do agree that they want to get rid of affirmative action.
I do, but to a point, I think affirmative action was needed when it was passed. But this is a different America. I think that it became the villain, if you believe it or not. It started discriminating against other races,
It
like
always
the
was a
Asian
villain.
community. Yeah, no, it wasn't always a villain. It was a hero. When it came out, it was needed. There were universities that were discriminating against people, minorities. They were using tactics and schemes to do it. So affirmative action comes along, made them honest. Okay. Now I don't believe that would be the case. Therefore, you can let it go and see what happens, or come up with
Yeah.
a new law.
So
Because
you
the
don't
problem with
see the
Congress
possibility.
is the problem with Congress is nothing's ever permanent. They always come up with something and it's like for 5 years and then it's going to expire. They shouldn't play games with people's lives like that. That is the
So you
problem I
don't
have with
see.
Congress right now.
So when it comes to affirmative action, you don't see a possibility of employers going back to hiring just based on race or redlining. A lot of things that were done in this country based on race. You feel like we've gotten past that.
In colleges, yes. This was about colleges. I didn't hear anything about the workplace.
No,
This was
I
about
get what you're
colleges.
saying, but yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is if that stuff exists in those other areas, why do we believe that colleges won't do the same thing? I mean, if I'm in a small town, for instance, it's all white. I may not want African American students from a big city coming to attend this school because they tend to fluctuate in the bars and clubs. They're walking around town. If our town is one way, we don't want that tradition being upset. You don't see anything like that happening.
That would be blatant racism, and that wouldn't even pass
That's
the
what
common sense test. That wouldn't even pass the common sense test. If they were to do that, they would reverse what was done today. I don't think they want to do that, so they'll play it smart. Will there be discrimination? I'm pretty sure there will be, but there's also preference, and we got to be careful when somebody is doing preference versus you're accusing them of being a
right.
bigot.
Well,
Sometimes it's just
I
preference.
had to I had to laugh when you said that would be blatant racism. That's the whole reason affirmative action became law, is because it
That's
was
right.
combating blatant racism. All right, let
That's
me
how,
move it on. Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. Back then, it was a huge problem. Not as much as a problem today, and we have more oversight than we did back in the 1950s, 40s, and 60s. We didn't have as much
Okay.
subcommittees and things of that nature. So there's checks in place. Will those checks work? We shall see.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Religious exemption is next. I business. I don't want to be forced to serve members of the LGBT community. I have a Christian business. I don't want to be forced to serve Muslims. Do you agree with that? Do you think the Republicans are taking us in that direction?
I don't think they're taking us in that direction. Will it happen? Yes, because it happened before this law was before it just came around. The problem is not it's going to happen. The problem people are going to have on the left or even independents is the business will survive, and that's what's going to infuriate them. The business shouldn't survive
Let me
if
interrupt
they
you.
don't
I'll let you
serve them.
hold on. Let me interrupt you. I'll let you continue. But folks, tap the screen. We got nearly 500 of you folks in here. Get your boy up to 10,000 likes. It helps out the algorithms, brings in more MAGA, which the program is preferred guests are MAGA. So let your thumbs not be lazy. Get your boy up to 10,000 likes. We got plenty of folks in here. Go ahead there, follow. So you're saying religious exemptions, you don't believe this could lead to religious businesses refusing to serve members of the LGBT community?
No, because they were already doing it. They were already doing it before the law came into place. So now they're going to do it. It may not have any legal repercussions. The problem is, like I said, the business might survive, and that's what people are actually going to have the problem with. Not that they wouldn't make the cake or serve them drinks or whatever it is. It's that the business survived, even if we protested, we marched, and the business is still there. How is the business succeeding? And they don't agree with the LBGQ because there's some people who
Well,
don't care,
that's
or
easy.
the food's that good sometimes. Like look at Paula Dean, for instance. She fell from the TV, but her restaurants are. I've been to Tennessee. The line you can mess up, but America is all about the comeback story. So Paul Dean one day might be
Let
on
me
TV again. Who knows?
I'll respond to that by saying this. There is a reason why someone like say who's pretty far left, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's pretty far right. There's a reason why they can exist in a country that has people from all sides. They're operating in an area where they don't have to worry about too many people from the other side. The point I'm making is if you're in rural Alabama, you can discriminate against the LGBT community forever because there's not a lot of them there, and your business will remain successful. So when you ask, well, how are you surviving if you're doing this? Because most of the area you're serving don't have a lot of these people in it. Just like if you didn't want to serve African Americans and you're in an area where 95% of the people are not minorities, you can easily operate a successful business and do that to infinity because you're only discriminating against 5 or 6% of your customer base. So it can happen.
Yes, but why would you want someone that doesn't like you to make you food? I,
Maybe your car broke down and you need to be serviced by this place.
okay, now I agree. Now that's different. But
That
we're
happens.
talking. Yeah, I'm talking about making a cake though. I mean, there's other
Well,
bakeries, and
well,
so
yeah,
if
I
they
get
don't
what
want
you're
to make my
saying.
cake, why would I want somebody that does not want to make my cake make my cake? My cake ain't gonna be good. I don't care what you say. The cake ain't gonna be good. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Why would you want to do
Well,
that to yourself?
the answer to that, and I would not want to be served by somebody that does not like black people. But the problem is, The
Exactly.
reason you push back is because if you allow them to continue doing that, there's no guarantee that it won't spread to the point where you may start having trouble getting services because so many people are taking that same mindset. So you got to stop it, even with places that you may not even patronize. But if
I
you
know,
don't
but
do nothing about it, next time you come to that town, it might be 10, 20 new businesses doing the same damn thing.
look what happened to Chick-fil-A. They tried it, and the opposite happened.
Yeah, yeah, but that doesn't,
So we got to be
unfortunately.
careful because the food is good. Like I say, when your food is good, sometimes yes, you march and you do all that, but people still gonna eat. Even the people that were offended gonna still eat there because the food is good. So we gotta
Yeah.
be careful.
Well, I got to move it on, but I will just say this. For instance, let's say, for instance, a town decides we are a Christian based county or town. We don't want to marry LGBT folks. Before you know it, if you're gay in that town, you can't get married any damn where because it can
That see,
spread. That's
that's different. That's a town that would be unconstitutional.
what if they don't want to serve you food?
That again, that'll be unconstitutional in that town, in that same town,
Yeah, I mean, if they don't have to make
because
you a cake,
a
what makes you
town is
think that?
different. But town is different from an individual. We got to be careful with that because republic means individual.
No,
Individual
but I
and
mean,
a
if
whole
you
town is different.
here's the point I'm trying to make. If you go to a rural town that's Christian based, everybody in that town may collectively agree without passing a city ordinance, but just collectively agree we're not going to serve LGBT members in this town. So you could find yourself in a whole city where you can't get anything to eat. That's the whole story behind the Green Book for African Americans. Certain places you could not stop because the whole damn town refused to service you.
Let me tell you why that would be a mistake. Let me tell you why that'd be a mistake. Then they will write a law to correct that, and then you'll be sitting there with the donkey face. Like, why is this happening to me? Why are you forcing us? Because you were dumb enough to do it in the whole dang town. Not one person, not one business, everybody. We all
Yeah,
agree
but that
we should
takes
be
that takes
prejudiced,
time.
bigoted, and racist.
I don't disagree with you resulting laws, but that could take years. That could just like we had segregation. Hell, look at the bus boycott with Martin Luther King. How long did it take before they finally backed off on it? That stuff could take years. I gotta move on though,
That's
follow.
true. Let me get the
Yeah,
last word. That's true. Back then, they didn't have social media. Social media is very powerful. It would end very quickly, unlike back then when they didn't have such technology.
we hope. We hope. Appreciate you coming in.
That's true. No
Thank
problem.
absolutely. Thank you for the lemonade, Crystal. Appreciate that. But that is, like my last caller said, that is the ultimate solution is to pass a law to overturn it. But if you're dealing with a town or an entity, a group of people that do not want to serve the LGBT community, maybe African Americans or some other minority group, to pass a law means you need lawmakers that are on your side. If you're in a hardcore right wing area and you got a governor that's right wing, it could take years to get that law passed. So just want to point that out. Looking in the comments, tap the screen. Damn voice is going out again. All right. So when was America great? I get that on every. We've answered that question a number of times. Republican SCOTUS will make white Christian nationalism great again. Damn. Damn. Same could be said about Democratic states. New York, for example, Second Amendment. That is true. But the Second Amendment is currently a constitutional right. Having a cake made for you if you're gay, having an abortion, they're not. Going back to the box. Army vet. I don't know why my damn voice started getting hoarse, but let's keep it moving. Good afternoon, Army vet.
Hey Tim, what's good, bro?
I'm trying to figure that out right now. You got the best hand. So, do you see the Republican agenda as possibly rolling us back at all?
Mike Pence said in his interview while he was over pandering in Ukraine that this would take us back, keyword back, and then he tried to quote Martin Luther King and say to judge people by the content of their character, but back then they didn't judge us by the content of our character. So he's a clown for even trying that. But here's the thing, man. Republicans will the Republican Party is a melting pot of pieces of shit.
Oh my
Okay?
God.
And the
Wait a
reason
minute.
why
Wait, hold on. Tap the screen, folks. Get your boy up to 20,000 likes. You guys are lazy as hell in the thumbs. Melting pot of pieces of shit. You gotta elaborate. What's making you say that?
Okay, so you have those Republicans who are straight up racist, right? They don't like anybody that is not white. They want America to be all white and everybody else to go back to where they come from. Then you have those who don't necessarily believe that way, but they want the power. So they will pander and allow those type of people to rise up, like Margie Taylor Greene and Boebert, right? So you have those who want power, then you have those who are straight up racist, and then you have those that are just poor, and even though they're white, they feel like they're still better than everybody else. So
But
you
wait a minute.
have that melting pot.
You don't believe all folks that vote Republican or even MAGA are racist and white supremacists, do you?
No, I don't believe that. What I'm saying is when you have people that are racist or white supremacists in the Republican Party, and then you have those that says I can exploit those individuals to gain power and money, and then you
Okay.
have those who say I'm a black conservative, so I'm gonna vote conservative even though they are still supporting those who are white supremacists, right? So that is the melting pot of deplorables that are the Republican Party.
What
So
about what about on the liberal side though? Do we not have people very similar? Do we not have racists and things like that among our party?
of course we do. Absolutely we do. But here's the thing that I've always said, and I will continue to believe. The Democrats will not give us everything that we want, but the Republicans will take shit away from you. Just like the affirmative action that the Republicans, the judicial Supreme Court, just took away. They didn't take away the legacy people, right? Your parent donated millions of dollars to build this library. They didn't take that away. They didn't take away your parent is a teacher here or a professor here, so you're going to get preference. They didn't take that away. They took it away because white supremacists convinced Asian people that, hey, you didn't get in here because black people got in here because of affirmative action.
Mm.
So they've been trying this for years, but they couldn't get it passed. So they bring in another minority group, and now all of a sudden it's gone. That's
But
how
we
they
have
do.
to, but we have to ask the question where they're making their complaint. Is affirmative action unfair if you happen to be white or Asian?
Okay, I'm gonna put this at you, right? I'm a veteran. If I apply for a government job, I automatically depending on my time in service, I automatically get a preference over anyone else that isn't a veteran. But they're not getting rid of that. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
And
but
so
being a
if you're going to
veteran,
go down that path, then you need to go down that path for every
but
demographic.
wait a minute. That's a bit different. If you were a veteran, you
Why?
stood up and did your patriotic civic duty that any of us could have done. But you actually did it, so they're rewarding you from it, as opposed to just simply being born black. I don't think those two are in the same category.
Why not? Being black is should have more of a preference because we built this freaking country by making cotton the biggest commodity that brought finance to America that allowed those who own plantations to gain wealth, right? So being black should have more of a preference than as a veteran, in my
Well,
opinion.
you know what the counterpoint is going to be, though, is
I
that
don't
no
care what the
one in
counterpoint is.
No one in existence today picked cotton. That's what they're going to counter with. How do you respond to that?
Sure, I'll respond to it this way, right? If I get hit by a car and I pass away, then my children should have the ability to still sue you for my passing away. We didn't have that opportunity back then because they didn't give us rights to be able to sue. So we are still owed reparations, which means to repair for something that has been done to people. We never got
Now,
that.
I agree with you if it was your parent that got hit by a car, but you're talking about filing a lawsuit because your great 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 grandmother got hit by a car. So there's a big, huge gap in time. You still believe that you should be restored for what several generations ago?
We were denied our ancestors were denied the opportunity to sue. Right? So if
Yeah,
you deny a people the opportunity to sue, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, now you have that opportunity. Now, from that point, we get to sue. Right? Look at Jewish people with the Holocaust, right? People
right.
that were not victims of the Holocaust are still reaping the benefits because their grandparents or parents were able to sue corporations, governments, right? We're not given that opportunity. So when you look at the affirmative action ruling today, basically it was based off of just black people. We are being
Yeah.
weaponized. We are always weaponized against someone else, and then all of a sudden it's justified,
Yeah.
right? So we need to
I think one of the problems with reparations is that for all of these other groups that receive reparations, like the Japanese from internment camps, hell, even the Chinese, Native American, there was such a resistance to make African Americans whole that the gap in time has been tremendous. Whereas these other groups, like you talk about the Holocaust and things like that, it didn't take long for them to sympathize and say, maybe we should help these people out. Whereas with African Americans,
Tim.
there was never
That's
that type of
incorrect.
sympathy.
That's incorrect because if you look at indigenous people, right? Not Native Americans. America didn't exist, but indigenous people. They own half of Oklahoma. And that is because recently they said that America reneged on its treaty with indigenous people. So half of Oklahoma has been given back to indigenous people. Indigenous people were here before African American enslaved people were. So if you can rectify that, then you can rectify us.
I'm not saying it can't be rectified. I'm just saying the
They
sympathy
don't
for
want to
doing it.
rectify it, Tim, for the
Yeah,
simple fact is
yeah.
they don't want us on an even footing. So they will sit here and say, if America got religious or whatever for one moment and say, you know what, we're going to make African American people, foundational black people, we're going to make them whole. And we're going to give them $1 million a piece. You're going to have a people shitting in their pants because now all of a sudden black people have more than what they have.
Mm. I don't, something, I don't disagree with that because I do believe if you give reparations to Native Americans, which they have, Native Americans for the most part still keep to themselves. Whereas if you give it to black people, they are going to try to lead in this country and lean more toward equality, if not superiority. So there is more of a reason because you're going to be in competition. If African Americans get wealth, you're in direct competition with them. If Native Americans get it, they're going to stay on their reservations and things like that, and you don't have to really worry about competing with them. So that
But
may
they're
have something to
but
do
look
with
at
it.
their reservations though. Their reservations are not great. You see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah, but
okay,
some of that is their own doing too. I mean, free casinos, free able to sell tobacco, tax free fuel. They shouldn't be living in those primitive conditions to the point like that. There's a lot of money that
I'm
should
not
be in
gonna
that community that's not.
right. So I'm not gonna speak on that, right? Because that's for indigenous people to step up and say, hey, this is why this is the situation, right? I'm not gonna speak on that. But what I'm saying is make us whole. If you make us whole and we fuck the bag, that's on us. But you're not even willing to make us whole,
Yeah, that's
right?
not gonna.
You're
It's
you're
a
doing you're
challenge.
doing everything you can to take us backwards.
Mm.
because you feel your power structure is slipping. If
Yeah.
you look at Texas right now, and I saw this recently, Texas is 40% Hispanic, 30 something percent white, and like 13% black. This is why we're having these type of policies that's taking us backwards, because they see the demographics changing and they
You're
don't
talking
want
about
that
you're
demographic
talking
to
about replace.
change.
Yeah, you're talking about the replacement theory. But I got to move it on
Well,
to
that's,
Army vet.
oh, no
Go ahead.
doubt, no doubt. That, I mean, yeah, that's how they want to say it, is it's replacement theory. It's not replacement. Nobody is making a conscious effort to replace anybody, right? We know that this land belonged to indigenous people first. And then once there was the War of Mexico, then you had a separation, but it was still Texas, and most of the West Coast was Mexican territory anyway.
All right. Real
So
quick, one last question. I want to give this one to you. This came from JC Jammy in the comments, stating that maybe some whites believe that if African Americans were to gain the upper hand, they would do the same thing to whites that was done to us. Do you see any validity in that? You believe that at all?
historically, you've never seen that happen. So if we're
South
going off
Africa.
a
South Africa,
South,
that has happened.
okay, so so you're telling me that South Africans are running around enslaving and killing Boers?
They're taking the land back and they're killing the landowners. Yeah, it's happened
Listen,
over there.
listen. If you took land from me, if I came to your house, Tim, and said I'm gonna take your house by force, and I take it, and then you have an opportunity to take it back, but I'm resisting, who's at fault?
I
If you
get your
ask for
point, but this
if you
doesn't. This
ask for my
doesn't
house,
not.
but
But wait a
listen,
minute.
if
This
you
is
ask for
not.
your house back, but Tim,
Yeah,
if
but
you
this is
ask for
not.
your,
Wait, Army vet. This is not tit for tat. We're talking about
sure
several
it is.
generations ago. No,
It's,
it's not.
bro,
Several
it's never tit for
generations.
tat. Listen,
No,
it's never
hang on.
tit
This
for
is what I'm
tat.
saying. This is the point I'm
Okay.
making. If your grandmother's house was taken back in the 40s or 50s, and you want to come and take mine now that I've inherited, that's not tit for tat. It's not like I took your house yesterday. You're talking about a generation, 2 or 3 generations ago.
Tim, just like I explained to you before, right? Indigenous people got half of Oklahoma back, right? They
Right.
didn't have to they didn't have to go to war for it, right? They went to court for it, and the court said, "You know what? Yeah, you got to honor that." And they gave the land back. So those people in South Africa that says, "Hey, this was my ancestral grounds and you took it by force. We want it back." If the Boers said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Here's your land back," nobody would have died. But they said, "No, forget that. We took it. We own it. My grandparents have had it for 50 years. Forget your thousands of years you had it. We had it for 50 years or 100 years. You can't have it back." They get what's coming to them
Mm.
because that
Huh?
wasn't
I like
theirs.
your I like your way of thinking. That's a hell of a battle. I appreciate having the conversation. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, I'm on your side, but I do have to push back. It's because it's what I do. I got to move it on, to Army vet.
All right, bro.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Absolute, absolute. All right, looking comments. You don't want that mess over here, says Crawl Daddy. Well, in we all know the obvious outcome from, as you put it, that mess could result in a civil war. We know that. I mean, my last caller was pointing out, land was taken from a hell of a lot of people, and if those people were to demand their land back, certainly by force, the folks who took the land would opt to try to kill them. It would end up being a civil conflict in this country. So we do want to point that out. Tap the screen, get your boy up to 25,000 likes. Let your thumbs not be lazy. The program is and always will remain MAGA friendly in its entirety. I don't block, ban, or censor anyone simply because you disagree with the host. We'll give you plenty of time to state your point without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored. And by the way, if you do enjoy civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle without any interference of being blocked, banned, or censored, you're in the right place. Follow the program. Helps out the algorithm. War is survival of the fittest. I like that. Hey, you have toilet paper on your sunroof. Seriously? Where are you seeing that at? It's a couple of sheets of paper I have up here to block the sun, but damn, you're listening to this program, and that's what you're paying attention to. Okay, all right. Is it really that boring, huh? And the land did not belong to the natives. A lot of land was purchased. He needs to back to school. Who did the Native Americans purchase the land from? Now, obviously, you're talking about the Louisiana Purchase, maybe purchase in Alaska. You're talking about some of those other areas. I do agree with that, but the Native Americans in this country did have a hell of a lot of land taken from them. Just the Trail of Tears alone shows they were literally marched all over the damn country as the colonists continued taking parts of the country from them. The whole term Indian giver, you ever heard of the phrase Indian giver? The origin of that very term is meaning the United States would make a treaty or promise to give the Indians something, and then renege. That's where the term Indian giver came from. Is us constantly lying to the Native Americans about what we were going to do and agree with, and breaking treaties over and over again. So there's a fun fact for you. Picnic is another one. You need to look that one up. I'm not going to go into where the word picnic comes from. You know, going out and meeting somebody in the park and having lunch, a picnic. That term has a dark meaning. All right, going back to the box. We'll keep it moving with Ernie Contreras Jr. Good afternoon. Appreciate you holding on. Hopefully, you tapping the screen, get your boy up. There's 500 plus of you in there. We might be to make 40,000 likes happen if some of you guys push on the screen a little bit. Ernie, talking about the Republican agenda, folks are suggesting that they may be trying to roll shit back. Is there any possibility to that?
Well, I mean, take a look at Florida and Kansas anti-immigration policies that are coming up. Florida's about to implement their immigration policy on July 1st, and it's already having a negative effect on their economy, correct? I mean, people are leaving the
Yeah,
state.
but the immigration, when you talk about rolling stuff back, rolling things back to say the 1950s, we didn't have a real tough immigration law back in the 1950s, did we?
I mean, it was hard enough to get here anyways. I mean, I remember my grandpa talking about it, how hard it was to get into the United States and work, Like the policies were about the same, but at the same time, that's when agriculture was actually picking up in the United States too. We're actually picking the 50s and 60s were picking up a lot more than they were now. Like now, I live in California and it's one of the bread baskets of the world. We provide about 70% of the agricultural fruit and produce. So the
You guys
problem.
also provide a hell of a lot of the homelessness. Let me ask you this, because this is in the comments from Josh Bigelow. You were mentioned in Florida. He's suggesting that what you said that's not true. More people are moving to Florida than anywhere else. So you're pointing out the negatives of Florida, yet they have a huge amount of citizens migrating to that area. How
But
do you
per
explain
capita,
it?
but per capita, I mean, if you want to talk about per capita, more people are leaving Florida than they are coming in. You know what I mean? As far as the population.
Is that
It,
true? I have
yes,
not heard that.
if you look at it per capita, people like to say California is losing a lot more people out of California than they are in Florida. It's per capita, it's not happening. I mean, I think they said it was 0.08% of people are leaving California, and it's 0.15%, I think, is what's leaving Florida right now. You know what I mean? So
So you're saying that the population of Florida is actually slightly declining?
I have friends in Florida that are saying that they have left because of because of the immigration policy that's going to happen in on July 1st. They're afraid. You know what I mean? Because
Why? As a regular American citizen working a regular job, just a law abiding taxpayer, why would you leave Florida because of an immigration law?
I mean, if you're a regular American citizen, that's fine. But you and I know well, damn well, that most people that work in the construction business, that work in the agricultural business, aren't are people like us. You know what I mean? I'll be honest with you. I used to work out in the
But
fields, and
why
I
would
used to
that
work.
make me? I agree that that the Hispanics, they're picking oranges, they're doing roofing jobs and hotel jobs. But why would I leave Florida based on
No,
them being prevented
but
from
it's
doing
not
it?
the basic. It's not the basic American that's leaving. It's the people that are actually doing those work. You know what I mean? The work outside.
Oh,
You
okay,
know what
I
I
get
mean?
it now.
So the undocumented immigrants are the ones that are leaving Florida, And
So what you but keep in mind, entering America from an undocumented standpoint officially makes you a criminal. We just don't arrest them as much. But what you're saying is that the folks who are in the country illegally, technically criminals, are the they mind that.
well, they're gonna mind it when their economy starts taking a dump, when nobody's picking their fruit and nobody's doing their construction work and nobody's doing their hospitality work. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, there's plenty of jobs available in Florida. Who's taking them?
yeah.
You see the news reports out of Florida. There's tons of jobs available right now, but who's taking them? Nobody wants those jobs. I mean, they had a news reporter out there the other day picking strawberries, I think it was, or watermelons, and half of them left by 11 a.m. You know what I mean?
So, but based on what you're saying, so what are we suggesting that we need to
We
let
need to.
illegal?
No, 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 no. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I think the problem is that we have failed to realize how important these people are to our economy, right?
Yeah,
Because it's supply and demand. At the end of the day, if the fruit isn't getting picked by the rancher or the grower ain't getting his fruit picked, he isn't making any money. How is he stimulating the economy? You know what I mean? Everything right now is
right.
stagnant in Florida. So that's the issue is that,
So how
yes,
do you respond? So how do you, based on what you're saying, I'm gonna give you a comment out of the section here. Sergio Joseph is saying Americans will eventually take those jobs. So in other words, the illegal
I've
immigrants are leaving the state because of these tough
I've
laws.
worked in the fields for 20 plus years. I have never seen a regular born American take those jobs. And that's just the straight out truth. Nobody wants to be out there in 90-degree weather with the 100% humidity. Nobody wants to be out there in 115-degree weather, you know what I mean, sweating it off, picking grapes, oranges.
But is it the weather, Ernie, or is it the pay?
It's
Because
the
there are
pay.
plenty of
At the end of the day, it's the pay. At the end of the
yeah,
day, yes,
yeah.
it's the pay and the weather. I think it's 50-50, right?
I
Because
don't, something I will say this. There are plenty of hardworking Americans that do
there is. No,
construction
and I
projects.
won't take that away from him.
But
And I won't
hold
take
on
that
a
away.
second. Hang on a second. There are plenty of hardworking Americans that do construction projects. You got plumbers that are willing to go into things to the heat. If the pay is there, you can find plenty of Americans that will deal with some horrendous conditions. I believe that the illegal immigrants are the only ones doing this shit because the pay is not there. Americans will work hard if you compensate them right. And for
Well,
what you're talking
and you're
about, the
right.
compensation sucks.
And at the end of the day, who are the ones that are not paying? It's the companies, right? It's the ranchers,
Yeah,
it's the growers. So when you at the end of the day, it's supply and demand, right? They demand the workers. Unfortunately, right now the undocumented immigrants right now are the supply. Because nobody else is taking nobody else is taking that work, because you're right. Nobody wants to pay $15 to $18 an hour to work out in the
yeah,
fields, right? You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because at the end of the day, it's all about making their money. So you think the
But
farmers?
here's a question I have to ask, and maybe the answer is greed and capitalism, but I
Yeah,
have to ask this question. We're not the only country that have those same jobs that illegal immigrants do in this country where they don't get paid shit. Those jobs exist in other countries have people picking fruit, other countries have people, doing hotel duties and shit like that, and they don't have illegal immigration problems. How do they make it work? But in this country, the only way it can work is if you pay them pennies per hour. What is the difference?
we don't want to pay extra for that fruit. We don't want to pay extra for the grocery at the grocery, right? I mean, you rather pay $2.50 for a bottle of orange juice, not $10, right? You want to pay $2.50 a pound for peaches. You don't want to pay $8 a pound. So that at the end of the day, it's the consumer also that, you know what I mean, is getting pinched at the grocery store, right? You know what I mean? So if they pay if they pay those employees a lot more money, that means the price of groceries go up. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It
So
goes
it is
tenfold.
greed. It is
It's
greed. We
greed.
would
It's
rather
it's it's
exploit
totally
people.
greed. I mean, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, if we look for a humanity standpoint, yeah, I'd appreciate if everybody got paid, a decent wage, right? Not be living paycheck to paycheck. But at the end of the day, we are all into this capitalist society where, we want to make as much money as we can while exploiting other people that can't, that
Yeah.
can't help themselves.
I
It's
don't.
all
I
about
think we're. I
exploitation.
think we're on the same page with that because I lived in Australia and I've lived overseas in New Zealand, and I can tell you they have hotel people, that make up your bed when you stay over there, and they're not immigrants. and they are able to make it work. They got people picking fruit. Everything they're getting is not imported from America. They got people doing those same jobs, and they're not immigrants doing it. So it
Yeah.
can be done. Now, it does cost more to eat in those countries than it does in America, which goes into our argument that we would rather exploit people to have cheap goods and services than to pay them properly and pay a decent wage for it. I'll give you the last word, but I do got to move it on.
No, and you're right. It's all about exploitation. We exploit I mean, even the American worker gets exploited, right? Like we
Yeah.
there's some jobs where I believe that they should get paid more, but they don't, right? Because it's all about money at the end of the day. I mean, it's all at the end of the day, it's all about making that money. And hey, I'm all about it too. I'm all about capitalists too. But at the same time, we have to look at each other and be like, are we taking care of our own, brother and sister? You know what I mean?
I don't think a capital. Yeah, I got to move it on, but I don't think a capitalist cares about taking care of their brothers and
Yeah.
sisters. They care about making money.
Thanks,
Appreciate
bro.
you coming on,
Yeah,
Ernie.
thanks,
Though, absolute. In the comments, I would suggest and submit to you that in America, one of the few countries with a huge tipping culture, where you tip at restaurants and tip your bus drivers, and a lot of that is due to the exploitation. When I lived overseas, as I pointed out, they didn't have tipping culture because if you worked at a fast food restaurant, you got paid a decent wage. A lot of things you do in America, you have to tip because the person that's servicing you or serving you ain't getting paid shit. You go to a bar or a restaurant, some of the folks are making $3, $4 an hour. Even at places like Olive Garden somewhere where you may pay, 50, $60 for two people to eat, the person serving you barely made the cost of a soft drink during the time they served you. $3, $4 an hour they made. For that hour you sat down and ate, their employer paid them $3 or $4 an hour. And you were charged $60 for the meal. That actually happens. That's why we have tipping culture. And I see in the comments, Shenanigans says, eat at home. Eating at home will not solve this. It still won't solve it because you're tipping more than just lowly paid food service. You're tipping folks, SkyCap and bus folks. I mean, you're tipping people everywhere because there's so many people in our society that get paid like shit. It ain't just eating out. Looking in the comments, farmers don't make much. Farmers don't make money like you think. Well, when it comes to giving folks a raise, I'm going to give you what my late grandfather used to say. When somebody asks you for money, always make it sound worse than it is. Always tell people you're struggling. That way people won't ask you for shit. Remember the old t-shirts, don't ask me for shit? Anytime it comes to giving folks at the bottom a little bit of help, everybody is suddenly not making much money. Like what you pointed out, farmers don't make that much money. Nobody is. No one. Hell, Jeff Bezos is barely getting by if it comes to giving Amazon workers a little bit of a raise. Elon Musk is suddenly sleeping in Teslas. Can't afford to give nobody a raise. That is what everybody says. Small business owners, everybody is broke when it comes to giving somebody a raise. Looking in the comments, I'm trying to get this conversation a chance, but y'all wild and don't want to hear people out. Shark Bait, love the name. You're welcome to come in the box. As I say on every program, it's MAGA friendly in here. Despite some of the liberal opinions you may hear, the opinions we get range from left of Bernie Sanders to I'm having dinner with QAnon tonight. We don't let anyone feel censored, blocked, or banned in here because they have an opposing opinion. I let folks talk. You can tell me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Perhaps I might challenge you on that, but I won't censor, limit, or block you in any way. Understand that. Looking in the comments before we go back to the box, that's me, left of Bernie. Well, mark time. You left of Bernie folks, many of you despised Hillary Clinton in 2016, and because you felt that Bernie was cheated by Hillary in 16, many of you either opted not to vote in 2016 or even voted for Trump. Now that we're in 2023 and you're looking at the Supreme Court, are you happy now? Are you happy? Talking to my Bernie bros, are you happy with how the country has turned out because you had a disagreement with Hillary Clinton? Are you happy? Let your boy know in the comments. Looking in the comments, you support this clown show. 382. I'm assuming you're perhaps talking about the host. I don't know. When you say clown show, what do you mean? She's mid, but the most qualified person who ever ranked. Mark time. I mean, some of you talking about Hillary Clinton. What do you guys think? Before I go back to the box, who do you think would be a better commander in chief? Hillary Rodham Clinton, or Joseph R. Biden? Who do you think would be better to lead this country right now? Hillary Clinton or Joseph Biden? Who do you think would have been a better commander in chief? And I understand my beloved MAGA is going to say neither. I do see that in the comments. I'm not expecting anyone who leans right to favor either one of these. You stand for it. So if you say neither, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. But for my folks on the left, who do you believe would have been a better commander in chief? Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden? Looking in the comments, I won't vote for either. They're trash. Jason says they're both trash. Your hat is on fire. Why is it on fire? I love this hat. Biden's so dumb, so Biden. Wow. Hillary was exactly everything Trump lied and said. Wait a minute. Hillary was exactly everything Trump lied and said he would be. She would have shook everything. Oh, so you're suggesting that Hillary Clinton would have been the candidate to drain the swamp? I voted for Hillary Clinton, but I don't believe that. I don't believe she would have been the candidate to shake everything. Yeah, you're right. Furious Styles made me look. Yes, my hat was on fire. All right, we're going to go back to the box. Hopefully you guys are still showing your boys some love. We try to deliver decent content. All we ask is that you tap the damn screen, get your boy up to maybe 50,000 likes. This is indeed a MAGA-friendly program. We don't block, ban, or censor anyone. You don't have to agree with the host. Nobody gives a damn if you agree with the host or not, but the host will challenge you. Nurses, thank you for the panda. Nurses, thank you. All right, let's go to the box, if I can make that happen. All right, we'll go to, as the song says, I'm wide awake. Wide awake. I like the name. We're asking the question. We're talking about the possibility of a Republican agenda. We're talking 5 different aspects of American life that we've kind of come to get used to, that some folks, particularly those on the left, are suggesting Republicans would take away if they are truly in power. We want to ask if you believe that this is the case, or if this is some bullshit that the liberals are just simply making up. Roe v. Wade, preventing women from having access to abortions nationwide. Do you believe the Republicans would ever dream of doing something like that? Affirmative action, we know we can chalk that one up as a success, but rolling back affirmative action, do you think the Republican agenda includes doing that? Religious exemption, letting religious folks choose who and when and how they will serve people. I don't want to serve an LGBT couple because I'm Catholic. Gay marriage. Do you believe gay marriage would be at threat? Do you believe legalized same-sex marriage would be at any threat at all if the Republicans gained control? Maybe a 60-seat majority. Do you think that would be at threat? And last but not least, one that's kind of big, interracial marriage. Could you ever possibly in your wildest dreams see the Republican Party trying to overturn the ability to marry someone outside of your race? That's what we're talking about. Do you pray to Trump? I'm not even religious. Tim F.U. Gate, I'm not even religious, so that should answer your question. Why can they not just let people live? All people. Well, JC Jammy, no one wants to let people live. Both the right and left wants you to live life according to what they believe the proper vision is. Whether it's the left trying to take away your Second Amendment rights or dictate how much you got to pay somebody, or it is the right telling you what you can and can't do with your body, what you can and cannot expose your children to, and what they can and cannot read. Both sides are doing this stuff. The right is just in control of the Supreme Court, so they're leading the conversation. But make no mistake about it, if there was a 6-3 majority on the liberal side for the Supreme Court, the Second Amendment would be in danger. We know that. The Second Amendment would be, certain firearms, certain weapons would be on the chopping block. Just something the Republicans are trying to do. Looking in the comments. But who is doing it right according to the Constitution? That's the question. Well, the Constitution can be interpreted several different ways. I mean, the Constitution was adopted in 1787. and we had slavery. So clearly you can do some shit despite the fact that the Constitution is in existence. Declaration of Independence, first words on there are all men created equal, written right in the middle of slavery. So you can bring up the Constitution, but there are numerous examples of how shit took place even though the Constitution was in existence. All right, going back to the box. Mark time. Good afternoon. I don't know what guess, but it didn't let him in. This is why I love your live. You get both sides, all sides. Chase C, Jamie, I appreciate the accolade. Thank you. Mark time. Good afternoon.
Great afternoon. How are you, sir?
Real quickly, hang on a second before we talk. Twillis, you said then the Constitution had amendment. That was funny. I've never seen the elephant. I'm like, damn, did my nose suddenly turn into a dick? Appreciate that. Thank you. Real quick, Twillis 57 said then the Constitution had amendments. If the Constitution was honored properly, you wouldn't need these amendments. You don't need a civil rights amendment if you just follow the damn Constitution. Mark time. Now, do you see a Republican agenda trying to turn back America to, say, the 1950s?
I mean, yeah, isn't that what "Make America Great Again" means? What again are they referring to? And I have my thoughts, but I mean, it is definitely a past thing. That's what "again" means. And the only people who benefit from the past is it's not marginalized people who have gained, wealth. It's not marginalized people who have gained rights or progress. It's the only thing that again, the past words is the people who already had power and privilege, which is, since our country's founding, landowning white men.
Mm. So you do believe this is kind of like a counter to replacement theory, where they feel they're on the losing end as these other groups start to gain equality, and you believe this is a pushback to slow this shit down, if not turn it around.
I've actually never heard you bring up replacement theory before. I know I've been off for a little
We've
bit,
talked
but
about it. Yeah, we
but
had a whole
that's
show devoted to it. We've talked
that's
about it several times.
That's absolutely true. So I'm proud of you on that one. That is absolutely true. I think
Okay.
that the United States is slated to be majority by minority by 2045, and that is absolutely what the conservative, because that's what conserve means, right? Is to stay the same, and they want the people who have had power and privilege since our country's founding to retain it, and so that is exactly what the conservative
Did you
agenda
say
is about.
Did you say 2045? It's only 22 years from now. You think it could happen that quick?
Yes, yes, yes. That's I think an AP article. Someone in the chat can correct me. I'm not by my computer right now, but I believe that is the demographic pace of it. Yes.
And that is that whites will no longer be the majority if we continue on this path by 2045.
Correct. That every minority population, if you were to combine them, will be 50.1%, and white people will be less than 50%. Yes, that's what that means.
That's a lot. That's a lot of baby mamas. That's a lot of. Are we having kids that fast?
Well, I mean, no,
Wow.
it's one that is. If you look up it's Amy Coney Barrett's decision on the Roe, like her actual write up of the Roe. They mentioned that it is to retain a quote unquote. These are verbatim her words: a domestic supply of infants. And I know for sure, and I know you know for sure that Amy Coney Barrett is not referring to black moms.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So,
Yes.
it's interesting you would say that, because we had a show back when Roe v. Wade was first overturned. And that was one of the questions we asked is, do you believe, as opposed to replacement theory, they rolled back abortion rights so that they can force women to create children, essentially using their bodies as incubators to produce more children to offset this? Or is that what you're suggesting, that they're trying to basically make women have kids by force because they can't have an abortion to offset losing the majority?
Yes. And I will put that it is. I will add the caveat of poor women, because the mistresses of senators and diplomats will never have a struggle getting an abortion. It is the people who will struggle to cross state lines, or who will just be subject to this. And so while that does include some minority people, maternal deaths for black women is 3 times what it is for white women. So
That
it is not an accident, and it is specifically meant to keep our population. It's a control mechanism, right? If you're kept poor, if you're kept from having an abortions, you have to. It keeps you in poverty. You don't continue on your career path. You have extra expenses that you otherwise, or in a world where Roe was still
But
there,
what
that you
I'm
would
gonna push back from a white perspective.
go for it.
What is keeping an African American in 2023 poor? I mean, like if you really want to at least live the American dream, I'm not saying become president or a senator, but if you just want to get a good job so you can purchase a home and a car in this day and age, what is stopping you from an African American standpoint?
So that is why I always add the poor caveat, because poor white people are always like, well, what about me? I grew up in a trailer park or whatever. But the answer to your question is the zip code where you're born, because the zip code where you're born also has the property taxes from that go to the schools. And so if you're born in a poorer zip code, you go to worse schools, which then leads to the criminal justice system, which then keeps you poor and then keeps you in those neighborhoods, and the
No.
cycle continues.
I gotta push back, even though I lean left. I don't know if I totally believe it. Real quick before I read my pushback, Jack Cole in the comments. Now you were talking about replacement theory. This is kind of funny. He said, "Oh my God," talking about from a white person's standpoint. He said, "We might get a chance to be a minority. I hope it still comes with all of the benefits." Do you think there are benefits? Do you think it's better off to be a minority in this country?
Absolutely not. Poverty is the number one indicator of crime, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that there are people who exceed despite circumstances, but you are more likely to end up in worse schools, have worse career paths, end up in the criminal justice system. It's not everybody. People want to bring up like, I don't know, like, what do you mean black people? What do you mean racism is still here? Like, LeBron James is rich, like, as if that like one exception
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the rule, and it's not. It's a predictor of outcomes, and so
Well, here's the thing. Here's the only part I disagree. And I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and north side of Milwaukee, so I've lived in some pretty dirt poor areas. I mean, hell, in the wintertime, most winters our freaking gas was turned off, so we had to apply for assistance because we didn't have fuel. So I know what it's like to live with utilities, lights being turned off, food pantries, all of that. And I will say this: I don't believe that being poor, at least in America, is an excuse to go out and start robbing people and selling drugs. I mean, even if you got to take a piece of shit job, because I did it. I've never been arrested in my mind. I don't want to sound like one of those. Well, I did it, so can you. But when it comes to committing felonies in America, I mean, I suppose if I was truly starving, having to eat dogs and cats because I had nothing, I might go out and rob somebody. But even if you live in a poor zip code in America, I don't see where you have to do that, which is committing felonies and things like that to survive. I think that where I grew up on the south side of Chicago, most of the people who were committing felonies and things like that were not doing it to survive. They were doing it to thrive. They had fancy shoes, they had nice cars, they had jewelry. They weren't just doing it to get by. They were doing it to get rich. So that's just I know my opinion is different from a hell of a lot of folks, but growing up in some of the worst areas of the country, I know I didn't do it, and I didn't have nobody, telling me otherwise. And I just don't. And I hear that from a lot of folks that being poor is what's, causing you to commit crimes. At the end of the day, I think a lot of these folks are choosing to do that.
and I can agree with you to a certain extent. I will say, like, having nice shoes or a nice jacket or car or whatever doesn't make you rich, because we're talking about like generational wealth. We're talking about wealth that you can pass on to your children, to get them out of school or out like into better schools or whatever. Again, we're just talking about like straight numbers. Like, poverty is the main predictor of crime. I think we need to change some definitions, because like I think we should flip the penalties for blue collar and white collar crime personally, because
That would be interesting.
burglary only makes up, I think it's 13 to 18% of all crime, right? The most theft that occurs in our country, over 60%, is wage theft, and that's from employer to employee. Burglary and larceny don't even add up to that amount, but that's the part that we see on the news the most, right?
Yeah.
That because that's what's sexy, right? Like if it bleeds, it leads. If you have people breaking into a Walgreens or whatever, that scares the I don't know who still watches local news, like old people
I
in their
do.
rockers. Yeah.
I watch
Like
a lot of local. I watch a lot of Fox. I watch a lot of CNN. I watch a lot of
no,
news.
that's
I mean,
national news.
yeah.
I'm talking about local
No,
news.
I said local too. I watch a
Oh,
local
okay.
ABC affiliate. I watch a lot of news, man.
But yeah, it's just percentages. It's just that's what causes most of it. Do some people steal to get their rocks off? Like I guess sure, but again, we're kind of focusing on the wrong crime, and the crime has dipped the last 50 years since the 1970s. Every year it's gone down, and the only time it went up was in 2020 because of COVID, because it forced a huge contingent
Yeah,
of people back into poverty without their jobs. That
yeah.
was the main drive of why crime increased.
Yeah, the problem with that is if you do watch cable news, particularly right wing news, they make us look like we're just robbing the whole country blind. I mean, you'll see somebody go to Walgreens and start stealing shit. They'll play that on Fox News for multiple segments. So it does
Exactly.
look like, which is why we did a video or did a live a few weeks ago where the African American kid knocked on the door and the old white guy shot him through the door, and they were talking about well that his own grandson was like, well, my granddad who shot the kid
Yep.
sits around watching Fox all day, and because I watch a lot of it, I can totally sympathize with that old man. If I sat down and watched nothing but Fox and I didn't leave the house and I didn't have black friends or associates, I would be scared as hell of them too, because that channel shows us in the worst light.
Yeah. It melts
So
your brain. It melts your
yeah, it
brain.
does. I've
That happened
become,
a
I've
mile and a half away from my
personally
house. Yeah.
yeah, I've personally become more judgmental of my own kind just from watching Fox News, because they point out nothing but our flaws. It's kind of like a Candace Owens. You don't hear anything positive about the African American community from Candace Owens or Fox. And if you watch a lot of that, you're going to develop those opinions. So it
Yeah.
is what it is. But I got to move it on, Mark.
Have a good one.
Good talk to you.
I will just say that it's like fear is a powerful motivator, right? Like controversy.
Yes, it is.
The things
Yes, it
that the
is.
things that get your feelings up are the things that get clicks, and that's honestly part of this whole situation. Is it drives anger, and it drives passion, and it drives you to that. So, have a good one, man. It was good talking to you though.
Absolutely, absolutely. And going back to the box, add to what my last caller said about fear being the number one driver of politics. Currently, we do have a fear, and right now, that biggest fear is that children are at risk. So it's a very common issue you use anytime you want to get something across. Have people thinking that the kids are at risk. It does work. It does work, because currently, right now, that is the whole outcry against the LGBT community, is that they are going to harm your children. I've pushed back from the simple standpoint that the Catholic Church has a lengthy history of actually harming children. So if you truly wanted to protect children, that church should have been taken out of existence. Because not only were they harming children, the upper echelons, damn near up to cardinals and damn near the Pope, was actually playing musical chairs with priests, moving them around so that they did not face justice. So it was permeated throughout the administration in the Catholic Church. If you truly are for saving children, that should have been taken out. Whereas what we're doing to the LGBT community, for the most part, we're doing a proactive protection of children. They don't have a huge record of abusing children. We're doing this because we think if you allow people to go to the wrong restroom, or if you allow people to be around you, we think that they will abuse children. There is no need to think with the Catholic Church. It actually happens. Yet our focus is more on the LGBT community than this group of people responsible for abusing children for decades, if not generations. So I do have to push back and say, I kind of wonder, is it really about protecting the children, or you just don't like folks being gay? Let me know in the comments. All right, we'll go back to the box, though. Tap the screen, get your boy up. Exactly, tell the truth. And I just hit something that I didn't mean to hit. Shit, this thing is going crazy. Catholic Church has funded every war since 500 years after Christ. Damn. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I'm going to plead ignorance, but we do know the Catholic Church has been involved in some pretty nefarious activities. Way more than anybody representing the LGBT community could ever be accused of. And yet the Catholic Church is still reveled, championed, loved, favored by folks on the right. It's a worthy discussion. Some people have not been outside their own neighborhood, let alone state. Live life and know people. JC, I could not agree with that more. Folks often will say one way to get rid of racism is to stop talking about it. Yours truly, I vehemently disagree with that. In fact, I don't think any atrocity goes away by being quiet about it. You know, you look at Hitler, he certainly wanted you to shut up about the Holocaust. In my humble opinion, the best way to get racism is get past racism and things like that is to do what JC is indicating. You need to get outside of your community and actually affiliate with these folks. When I grew up, south side of Chicago, north side of Milwaukee, we were told, you know, all white people got money, they all got good credit, they're all highly educated. Now that I live in a neighborhood that's 90+% white, I got more of a college education than most people in my neighborhood. A lot of people that live around me are poorer than I am. So that is not true. But you have to get out and actually mingle with these folks to find out those stereotypes are not true. You start finding out my neighbor's black, got 6 kids, and ain't none of them out robbing anybody. But when you live in your own little bubble, you don't have any evidence other than what they're telling you on TV. And as we know, whether you're on the left side or the right side of the aisle, television can be very divisive. That is what gets ratings. Going back to the box, tap the screen, by the way. Get your boy up to 60,000 likes. We often ask, because we know got a lot of lazy thumbs in here, even though we're trying our best to deliver decent content. In regards, the actual topic, in regards to the Supreme Court rolling back affirmative action, pretty much outlawing it at this point. Schools cannot use race to determine, you know, student admission and things like that. Many folks on the left are suggesting that the Republican agenda is to take us back 1950s or even before. So we're going to be asking that question. Do you believe if the Republicans were to get in control, become commander-in-chief again, maybe get a 60-seat Senate majority where they had some real power, do you see any validity that the Republicans would actually roll us back to see how America was a few generations ago? Some of the other topics, we know abortion has been handed back to the states, but what about a federal ban? If they had a 60-seat majority, president, control of the House and Senate, do you see a federal abortion ban being possible? Or is that just something liberals are making up? What about religious exemptions? If you were Catholic, you can pick and choose who you want to serve. You think the Republicans will support that? What about gay marriage? Rolling back the ability to marry a same-sex partner. Do you think with a 60-seat majority, the Republicans would take that away? Last but not least, interracial marriage. If the Republicans were firmly in control, where they could even alter the Constitution, they had enough of a majority to alter the Constitution, they would remove the ability to marry a same-sex partner and or someone outside of your race. Do you think they're trying to take us back to that? Because that's what the liberals are talking about. We're going to go back to the box. We'll keep it moving with, that says AMPS 480. Good afternoon. That's a stretch, says 1984 isn't fiction. That's what we're asking. Is it a stretch or is it something that could actually happen? Remember, when Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh were being put in the Supreme Court, suggesting that the Republicans were going to roll back Roe versus Wade was also considered a stretch. We were told as liberals, why the hell are you accusing us of going back and trying to change something that's already been adjudicated? We're not going to mess with Roe v. Wade. That's just a scare tactic. Look where we are in 2023. So it has actually happened. So sometimes those stretches can become reality. That was a threat that Ted Cruz made. Usually got which one was the threat he made? Majority of the Supreme Court was left before the new judges came in. 6-3 majority. It wasn't that far. Well, obviously, Obama was denied a legitimate Supreme Court pick, which was Merrick Garland. How many folks on the right believe Merrick Garland is politicized and he's attacking Trump and other Republicans? Think that might have something to do with it? The fact that some of you folks on the right hated Obama so much, disliked the liberals so much, that you put Merrick Garland in the middle of an attack on Obama? Now he's in power and he can actually deliver some of the punishment back. I'm not here to pretend like what Merrick Garland is doing may not be political. It might be. Maybe you guys fuck with the wrong guy, but there is no denying what the Republicans did to Merrick Garland was wrong. That man was a legitimate pick, and the Republicans used some technical bullshit to prevent him from being a Supreme Court justice. So it is very possible when Trump suggests that he's weaponized against them, and it could be, because what they did to him being a Supreme Court justice was weaponized against him. So it is very possible that that guy could have a vendetta. It's very possible that any of us going through that. A lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court denied because you're pissed off with the president, you're pissed off with Obama. It's very possible any of us that went through what Merrick Garland went through might be a little bit, pissed at the Republican Party. So it's possible he could be politicized. And he said he's doing his job, says August Shaw. He could be doing, you can actually do your job, but still go above and beyond. If you get pulled over for speeding, and all of a sudden the cop writes you tickets for tinted windows, low tread on your tires, maybe a tail light this or a license plate light this out, it's bullshit. But he's doing his job. You actually are committing those violations. They're bullshit violations, but you might actually be doing them. So it is very possible that Merrick Garland could be acting politically, going after Trump for bullshit while doing his job. He could be doing that. I don't hesitate for a second to believe that Merrick Garland is pissed at what Mitch McConnell and the folks on the right did to him in regards to preventing him from becoming a Supreme Court justice. It was flat out wrong what they did to that guy. Now, I know my beloved MAGA loved it. Hey, you got a 6-3 majority out of the Supreme Court. Well, you might lose Trump because of it. But it is what it is. That's how politics are. Looking in the comments, the Constitution is like the Bible. It can be interpreted different ways. And that's a problem. It should not be that way. Unlike the Bible, the Constitution is supposed to be a legal document. Just like if you get into a contract with a realtor to build you a home, you shouldn't be able to interpret that shit different ways. How the hell did I get a 2-bedroom home when the contract said I had a 3-bedroom home? Well, I kind of interpreted it a different. No, it shouldn't be like that. It should be pretty clear. It's a legal document. We'll keep it moving. Cricket, cotton ball. Good after. This comes through. I've been having some trouble. Cricket, cotton ball. Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Any chance at all that the Republican agenda involves rolling us back to 1950s like America? Do you see that at all?
No,
Okay.
not
Why
at
do you
all.
think so many? Why do you think so many liberals think it is?
Well, I just think liberals are losing a lot of the African American vote, and every time the election comes up, they got to come up with something
You
because
think?
they're not
You
doing what
think?
they're supposed to do in office.
Yeah. You think liberals? You think the liberals are losing the African American vote? What do you think they're losing it to?
Trump, I see it on
Really?
TikTok every day.
Wow. Now, have you heard of the walkaway movement?
Yep.
What happened with that? They were supposed to walk away from the Democratic plantation, and they were going to elect Trump in 2020. Whatever happened with that?
Well, I can't really say that or I'll get blocked.
Give me a synonym. I'll never block you, but I get what you're saying. The TikTok gods can be crazy. What do you
Yeah.
think happened if you could give me a synonym? Are you talking about a measure of election of death?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Any idea? We're looking
It, it,
election November 2020. We're June 2023. So almost 3 years. Any idea where there hasn't been substantially more proof? Because Trump stated he won in 2020 by a landslide.
I
Why
mean,
hasn't there been more proof of that?
who's in office now? Who's controlling everything?
Joseph R. Biden.
Exactly.
But why is it that, because Joseph R. Biden, he doesn't control Ted Cruz or Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham. He doesn't control any. Why are they not saying what Trump said? Why is Mitch McConnell not saying Trump won by a landslide?
Uh, I have no idea,
Isn't
to
that
be
an
honest.
issue where virtually none of the
I
Republican Senate, Republican
I just
governors,
can
none of them are saying he won?
I cannot just get past the fact that Biden got more votes than Obama. Come on.
I mean, I get your point because Biden was not out there and Trump had these huge rallies. I totally agree with that. But at the same time, why is it that virtually none of the Republican Party, very few people, only a handful of them believe Trump won? If he
I,
truly
I
won, these people had the most to gain. Even the Republicans that lost their seats in 2020 are not suggesting that they got cheated. Only Trump is saying that. Why is that?
well, I don't think it's Trump only saying it. I think there's a lot of people saying it, and a lot of people that aren't saying it because they're afraid, just like I can't say anything on this app.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the banning and the censorship is crazy. I get that. But the
Yeah,
point I'm trying to make is there are far more Republicans, whether in office now or was in office, many of them who voted for Trump twice. There's
yeah,
far more of them saying that Trump lost than they're saying he won. And all of them are not facing censorship.
yeah. There was a lot of them saying that the Russian collusion thing was real because they're rhinos.
Oh.
You know, they all need to be the whole. They all need to be cleaned out, all of them.
Well, Trump is promising to do that. Do you think he can succeed at doing that
I think he can.
in 4 years?
That's why that's why they're so scared that he's going to get in there. So let's indict him on a bunch of bullshit.
So I have to ask then, because he promised to clean these folks out. He promised to drain the swamp when he was elected back in
Yeah,
2016. Why did that not happen?
I mean, I don't know. I think there was a lot of people Trump thought he could trust that he couldn't. I don't know.
So with him still promoting people that he can't trust, I mean, you just heard the audio tape released the other day of him talking about having classified documents in his hand. Somebody near the guy was able to record that. So clearly he is still dealing with people he cannot trust. So I want to ask you this question. What makes you think he's going to be any different in 2024 than he was in 2016?
I mean, I guess because he has nothing to lose once he gets in there. You know what I'm saying? He can't do another term. So I think the Democrats are scared. They're they're scared bad. So let's they can indict him, try to
Yeah.
get him not to run.
So what do you think it could be like if we get another presidency, Trump presidency?
So I think some people may be going to jail.
Like who? Give me some names.
Uh, Merrick Garland, Biden family, Clinton.
Well, wait a minute. We were promised that Hillary Clinton was going to go to jail back in 16. What happened with that? She didn't even get
Yeah,
indicted. She wasn't even called up
I
for an
was.
investigation.
Yeah, that was one of my big beefs with Trump. Is he said he was going to do it, and he didn't,
But you believe
and
if
he
you
should
give him a second. So he didn't do what he promised. Promises made, promises failed.
have.
But you
Yeah.
believe if you give him
Well,
a chance, some 8, 9 years later, he's going to suddenly do this all of a sudden.
I think so. I think you've got your side's got him so pissed off. I'm telling you, it's going to be a wrecking ball.
But let me ask you this: do you believe you can give me any either way you think of it? Like I said, I don't censor opinions, but when you look at Trump in 2016 when he got elected versus now, do you think his support is the same? It's grown since 2016 or gotten weaker?
I think it's grown.
So you think he has more support now than he did in 2016 when he got elected?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, if that is the
And
case, then maybe he could get the things you're suggesting done. But I don't personally see it because I like when I asked you why didn't he do it the first time, even you admitted, well, I really don't know. I just don't see enough out of the
well,
former president to believe that you're going to get anything different.
I think that uh, more minority communities are waking up to the Democratic bullshit because it comes to election time, then everybody's ready. MAGA people are going to come out and hurt you and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's just a
Right.
fear tactic that they keep doing. I've even asked Democrats who say that they're Democrats, and I ask them about, well, do you support abortion? And some of them like, no, not really. Do you support taking guns away? No. You don't even know why you're a Democrat.
Well, I will say this. I don't think most Americans, when you ask them, do you support abortion, they're going to, I can see, but when you ask them, do you support a woman having the right to choose, you might get a different answer.
Yeah.
There are Republicans, let me ask you this. Do you support a woman being executed for having an abortion?
No.
There are folks in your party that are trying to put that on as law in South Carolina. They're trying to make that a law.
Well, I can't just say that I agree with everything that they do.
Right. And that's the
I,
reason I'm saying
in
that though is the reason I'm saying that though is when you hear all the time about a drag queen show in on the street and they want to ban that, but you don't hear any complaints about a legislator saying that they want to have somebody executed for having an abortion, even though
yeah,
you don't agree with it. It's pretty clear your party is not that upset by that. I can
and
go and go ahead.
I haven't actually heard that myself, so I can't
Right.
really.
And
Yeah,
that's
I
the
can't really tell. I don't
that,
even watch Fox News anymore because I think they're all part of the system.
well, but that's the point I'm trying to make is that if a drag queen is saw walking down the street with a child in their hand or something like that, or if I go to Walgreens and I steal some razors off the shelf, it gets all kinds of airplay. But when a
Yeah,
conservative suggests that a woman having an abortion should be executed, right? Media doesn't talk about it, which is why you said I haven't heard about that. It's because they don't say nothing
but
about it.
but I haven't heard that on the left side neither.
Well, the left does the same thing. They have the same
Yeah,
left wing agenda. It happens on both sides. I'm not disagreeing with that.
and,
So
and in my
go ahead.
opinion, I think the government needs to stay more out of our business, the way the Constitution was written, but they
So you
don't.
mean so if the government stays out of our business, that means a woman has a right to choose. You're okay with that?
I mean, it I'm a
You're
religious
stumbling.
person,
You're
so
stumbling.
I don't think that that's right, but that's not my decision. You know, I mean, they're going to have to deal with that when they see God, in my opinion.
If they believe in God. What about Greg Abbott trying to force all public schools in the state of Texas, and I think they're doing this in Louisiana now as well, to have the Ten Commandments or Christian phrases in the school? Do you believe government, such as the state of Texas, using its state government, should be able to force all public schools to prominently display the Ten Commandments?
Yeah, because if their voters that voted him into office want that, then yeah,
So if you're okay, so you're saying because the voters voted Abbott in office, if he wanted to display the Ten Commandments, you support it because that's what the voters want.
yeah,
So what if a liberal votes somebody in office and they want LGBT books in the schools? After all, they voted the guy in. Do you see it the same way?
yeah.
Okay, all right. I think we're being a little bit more consistent. Why is folks on the right trying to go against LGBT material in
Be-
schools then?
because we don't, with the people we vote for, we don't want it in our schools, in our cities, and in our towns.
All right, fair enough. All right, listen. Appreciate you coming through. You're always welcome back. I do got to move it on, Cricket. Come on back
All right.
anytime, though, man. All right. Appreciate it.
Have a
Doors
good day.
always open to you. In the comments, too many Bud Lights. You guys are mean. You don't know if the man is having a Bud Light. Be nice to the man. Republicans are ignorant hypocrites, says Killer Geek. Well, I'm not going to go that far because I can point to a whole lot of shit the left would do that's hypocritical as well. Both sides do it. Both sides do it. If it can meet their agenda, both sides will do it. But certainly when it comes to Merrick Garland, which I brought up before, where the Republicans blocked his appointment to the Supreme Court, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden Trump had an appointment coming up, and the same excuse they gave to prevent Merrick Garland from becoming a justice, the election's about to happen, it suddenly didn't matter anymore when it was Trump making the appointment. So that was absolutely hypocritical, which is why I stated it would not surprise me if Merrick Garland does have an axe to grind with the Republican Party, because they treated him like shit. They literally treated Merrick Garland like shit with that Supreme Court appointment. So if he is politicized, as Trump is suggesting, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Trump is right on that. But at the same time, Trump did not speak out against Mitch McConnell doing that. He didn't speak out against his party doing that. That was hypocritical, blocking Merrick Garland from becoming a Supreme Court justice on the grounds that, well, the election's only a few months away. And then all of a sudden, when Trump made the appointment, the election was even closer, and suddenly they didn't have a problem with it. It's hypocritical. And it may end up costing Trump a hell of a lot if Merrick Garland succeeds. Looking in the comments, church and state separate. Fathers fled to America because of Church of England. Co-op, that is true. But once they came to America, they brought Christianity with them. And all of that separation of church and state stuff is bullshit. In my humble opinion, when they wrote those documents talking about our founding fathers, they basically said separation of church and state. And then they opened up a Bible and started writing laws. I mean, really, our country is not based on separation of church and state. It's very similar. The phrase separation of church and state is very similar to all men are created equal. Or what's written on the Statue of Liberty, bring us your tired, your weary, or your poor. They didn't mean any of that shit. It just sounded good. It's kind of like if you see a relative at a funeral, if you need me, just call me for something. You know, if you ever need anything, just call. They don't mean that shit. It's just a condolence phrase. If you need anything, call me. In reality, don't ask me for shit. I'm just telling you that because I know you're sad right now. That is how America was founded, on a bunch of phrases that they never, ever meant. Because first of all men are created equal. Women were being oppressed. Hell, even if you were a white guy that did not own property, you couldn't vote. All men were not created equal the day they wrote that shit. It's not like they wrote it, they meant it, and all of a sudden things deteriorated. They didn't mean it the day they wrote it. It was never true. Same thing with separation of church and state. It was never true from day one. It was bullshit from the very beginning. Going back to the box. We'll make it happen this time with Will. We tried it last time. I don't know if he comes through again. And Will, that's true. I see if you can choose it or not having the Bible in church, which Bible? Yeah.
How are
Will,
you
good
doing?
afternoon. I'm doing good. Talking about Republican agenda. Folks are suggesting that if they get power, they're trying to roll damn everything back to the 1950s. Do you see any truth in that?
Absolutely not, sir. That's the only, and that's not even possible. I'm sorry, because of the Constitution that was written. You can't rewrite the Constitution because you would have to have a civil war to rewrite the Constitution of the United
Oh,
States.
wait a minute. Let me give you the things that they believe they're trying to roll back. Because you
Okay.
mentioned the Constitution. Roe v. Wade, they believe that the folks on the right, if they ever got a supermajority and the
Yeah.
presidency again, they would try to make a federal abortion ban. You don't think there's
I
no chance at all they would do that?
That's a possible. I mean, that's a possible chance. Yeah, that's a possible chance if they wanted to. If they were short money and they had to cut something, like, our economy is terrible right now. Honestly,
Why would you
it is.
federally wait? Why would you federally ban abortion because you're short on
No.
money. I don't get what that doesn't make sense.
Oh, sorry. What I mean is, if prices go up and inflation continues, that's what I mean. If you had to cut back on something better than, you know, they're not going to cut back on Social Security, but they would cut back on an abortion, Planned Parenthood. You know what I'm saying? Having Planned Parenthood everywhere.
Okay. So, in other words, you
Mm.
do believe that if the Republicans had a supermajority, it is possible they could impose a federal abortion ban.
Possibly, but I don't think
Okay.
they're. I don't think they would. I don't know. A lot of people. I mean, they would have to have a majority of 50 votes. I don't think they would do
That's what
that.
I'm
I mean,
talking.
it's possible.
That's what we're talking about. We're saying
Okay,
we're
what I was
imagining.
talking about, you know that money goes to these abortion clinics, correct?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes.
Okay, of course. It takes a lot of money. Nothing's for free, and these liberals think free college, all this. It's not logic. It's not logical, sir. It's just not logical thinking.
You know something in regards to what we can and can't afford. I see us sending money to the Ukraine. I see us having a
Oh, I know.
20-year
It's
war. Hold on, hang on.
go.
I see us sending money to the Ukraine. I see us having a 20-year war in the Middle East. I see us coming up with trillions doing COVID. I would submit to you, we can afford a hell of a lot more than they've been letting on. PPP loans is another. We found a hell of a lot of money all of a sudden, considering how much shit we couldn't afford. How did all that happen? A
Hmm.
20-year war when we could not afford anything. How is that happening?
I, you got me. I
Yeah.
don't know how they're affording that or how they're able to. I mean, oh, they're simple. They get the Fed to print more money. That's what it's about. They just keep printing more money, keep putting more money at the Fed.
How about the possibility that they're just lying and telling you they can't afford shit that they actually can?
Well, that's a definitely possibility.
Yeah.
Taking taxpayer money too. I mean,
Okay.
they're not being honest. Do you?
Yeah, well, I would much
Not any of
rather,
us.
I would much rather you forgive the student loans of America. If you're talking about being America first, most of the stuff that
Yes.
liberals are asking for are things that benefit Americans, healthcare, student loans, and shit like that. If you're talking
Yeah, but
America first, why not let the money go to Americans as opposed to buying a new aircraft carrier? That doesn't make sense.
I do see that. Yeah, but I mean, how much money are you talking about, though? See, that's the point. I mean, how much more money can we print? You create more inflation when you make more money. If you print 100 million, whatever, do you think? I mean, 100 billion. Sorry, 100 billion. Do you think that's going to affect the poor and middle class? Absolutely. They're just going to jack shit up and bring wages up. It's all about money.
Well,
It's all about money.
I don't
Go
disagree
ahead.
with that, but as I'm pointing out, when it
Okay.
comes to the military, nobody talks about, well, we need to stop printing money. We keep finding money to buy new jets and buy new aircraft carriers. But when the minute an
It's
American
insane.
citizen asks for the money, suddenly we can't find it. Why is there such a difference?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I wouldn't have the answers, but I mean, if I was to run for office, then I could give you some answers, but it wouldn't be on a. We would be on a TikTok. I'm actually
That's a
trying to
that's a
run
fair
for
that's a
office.
That's a fair point, but I would submit to you
Hmm?
the answer is simple. They're lying to you. They can afford
It's
the things they want to buy. It's like your employer saying, I can't afford to give you a raise, and then you find out he took a trip to Europe. He can afford it. You just are not what he want to spend the money on. So that's
correct.
what I would submit
Correct.
to you.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Also, we were also lied to, I believe, and I just have that feeling. It don't make sense about January 6th. It doesn't make sense if you think about it logically. Okay?
What part?
Okay, okay, here's the biggest thing that people aren't even looking at and people don't realize. It's common sense that, okay, how hard is it to get into the White House in Washington, D.C.? It's impossible, even if you have a lot of people there.
No, I disagree. If
Yes,
you show up to the White House with 20, 30,000 determined people, you can
they're
get
going to
into the White
defend
House.
the president. They're not going to let you walk into the gates. It's not
Once
possible.
again, I tend to here's why I disagree. If you show up to the White House with 20 or 30,000 really determined Americans, you're going to have defenders of the president that are hesitant to take on a crowd that large because at the end of the day, they're going to get through and they're going to kill you too. I believe that many folks
Just
could
like the
overrun the
Roman
White
Empire.
House as well.
Just like every other
Yeah.
country, the Roman Empire falling, it eventually chaos will, I guess eventually the states will fall. We don't want it to ever come to that, but it could very, very.
Well, in the comments in regards to January 6th, I had a commentator say that January 6th was a hoax. Do you believe
Yep,
that?
I do. What
Why?
a hoax? A hoax. See, if you think about it, the media hated him since 2016, and all it was bash him, bash him, bash him, bash Donald Trump, make up stuff, call him a racist, make up stuff, make him talk about COVID or talking
Well,
about bleach and all that.
when you say make up stuff about Trump, are you suggesting somebody just made up and said Trump was born in Kenya, just made up something about him?
Yeah, some crap like that. Yes.
Yeah. You know, Trump was doing that to the last guy.
Obama, yes, he was, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You ever heard of
But he
karma?
didn't. But he didn't press
You ever heard of
charges.
karma?
Yes, I've heard of karma, but look at the show trial. Look at the show trial that Trump is on right now. It's all it is a show trial to make him look bad, but it's actually making him look stronger. And we're going to win 2024. I believe that Trump will win, and I mean, I just
So
feel that way.
let me ask you this, and he certainly could win. He has a lot of support. I don't tend to think that, but it's possible.
Yeah,
But
he could. It's possible.
In regards to January 6th being a hoax, any idea why very few Republicans in power, even ones who are staunch supporters of President Trump, do not say the
Okay,
same thing? They believe January 6th was a whole deal. They may not be
no,
testifying against Trump, but
no.
finding Republican politicians that are saying January 6th was a hoax is
Okay,
almost
but
non-existent.
well, let me tell you why it's non-existent. All you have to do is pay off the people that it's simple. You just pay off the people that were at the riot and make them turn themselves. Oh, you can get out of jail free, but we'll pay you like a certain amount of money to get out.
I'm talking about
It's
I'm not talking about the writers. I'm talking about the
okay.
Republican Senate and Congress. None of them are saying it's a hoax. Do you believe the entire Republican Senate and Congress have been paid off?
And lying to us. Yes.
By who? Who paid them all off?
The dark government, the CIA, not the CIA, the dark money, dark government. You don't know about. There's dark government that you don't know about that we are
So
actually paying.
So if let's say what you're saying is true, that the dark government paid off the entire Republican Senate and Congress, any
Not just
idea
the
why
Senate.
if this is a hoax, a plan to get Trump, and they did it by paying off all of these Republican
And
senators and
supporters.
Republican congressmen, I have to ask the obvious question: why is Trump supporting so many Republican Senate and Congress people that were paid off to try to eradicate him? Why are he still
They're
supporting these
riding
people?
his coattails to get into office. They'll say anything to get into office.
But that doesn't explain what I said. In other words,
Okay.
if I'm the president and people
Yeah.
are trying to take me down by implementing a hoax, and I find out it is Republican senators and Republican Congress people that have been paid off to take me down during the midterms, why would I endorse any of those folks? He endorsed a hell of a lot of
I
Republicans.
didn't. I didn't say it was by Republican senators. I just said it was by somebody. Like the sergeant at arms was Nancy Pelosi at the time.
But that's not what I'm asking you, though. I get Nancy Pelosi. You have a legitimate reason to like liberals. I get that.
Right.
I'm saying, why are there no Republican senators or Congress? They were all there that day.
Yeah.
None of them are saying January 6th is a hoax. Why is that? Republicans, not liberals.
You don't think there's
Republicans.
rules
Why
for?
are they not saying it was a
You
hoax?
don't think there's rules for them to release to say it's a hoax, or it's like they can't tell us everything. They'll be indicted or like worse. You know what I mean? If they go
You got
against
a
their
liberal, wait a minute. You have a liberal administration that is trying to go after Trump. They don't have any fear of being indicted. Folks want them to testify. What do you mean they'll be indicted?
well, they'll lose a position of power. They can't tell. They can't say us. Oh, they can't tell us Area 51 is real or aliens are real or anything like that. They can't tell the truth. They can't tell the entire truth to the American people. They can't go.
So
Oh, it's
you
a hoax. It's a hoax. They
So you're
can't say
telling me,
that.
so you're telling me the entire Republican
You
Senate, the
don't think they
entire
would have
Republican
been? You don't think they would have been thrown in jail for treason for saying that?
by
Absolutely,
the
they would.
liberals? You think
No,
if the
not only by the liberals, by the DOJ and the CIA or whoever. They can't just tell the truth. You think they
then
can tell the
why
truth?
isn't Mike Pence in jail? Mike Pence is telling the truth. Why isn't he in jail?
I have no idea why Mike Pence is not in jail, but that's just my theory. Let's just say that and leave it.
That's a
We'll
hell of a
agree to
theory, man.
disagree on that.
Will, that is a hell of a
we'll,
theory, man. So
we'll disagree.
yeah, we can fall in that category.
Yes,
So
if you disagree, then it's okay. I mean,
nothing
just
wrong
think
with that.
about it when you're off alive.
So I have to
if
ask
you
the
actually
question.
use critical thinking.
So I have to ask the obvious question: if January 6th is a hoax, why is Trump not saying that? He's saying it's not responsible,
Good
but he's not
question.
calling it a hoax. Why is Trump himself not saying they're using a hoax to get me?
Is it true that he's part of the Democratic Party and he's running as a Republican, or is that false? I don't know that was he ever running as a Democrat, or is that true? That they're saying he's a fake Democrat. That's what they're
Who,
saying that
Trump?
Trump is.
You're telling
Yes,
me
there's.
you are really deep, man.
Sorry. Hey,
Are
but
we
hey, I would
you
vote.
so
Hey, do
you're
you,
so deep? We talking about Ocean Gate now. Wait a
I don't
minute.
want to talk about what was the thing that was going. Oh God, what was it? Not Guantanamo. I can't even remember what I was talking about. But you said Ocean. Or you meant Ocean Gate, or what was the
Yeah, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about that submersible. You real deep, man. You down there with Ocean Gate. So
Hey, but I just wanted to say, enjoy the. I bet you're enjoying the AC over there in Florida in your car. Hey, there's no toilet paper on top of your car yet. Just be careful. Don't get TP'd.
I wish I like Florida. Unfortunately I'm in the Midwest right now, but I do love Florida. But listen, where I gotta move it on. My door is
Okay,
always open to you. We got difference of opinion, but you're certainly welcome back here anytime you want. So
and
I
we
do
can
gotta
definitely
move it
keep
on though.
talking some other time.
Absolutely. Good
All right,
talk. Good
thank
talk,
you.
Will. All right, man. All right, looking in the box. You folks, as always, I go left of Bernie Sanders to I'm having dinner with QAnon. So I think it's almost dinner time. But nevertheless, you don't have to agree with the host. I say that on every broadcast. Nobody's going to limit or censor your time because you have a difference of opinion. There are plenty of places you could be on this app where you got everybody in the box hating on Republicans or everybody in the box is wearing the red hat. We don't do that here. We let everyone speak. You are entitled to your opinion without any fear of being blocked, banned, or censored. And last but not least, we never, and I repeat, never talk down a guest. Everybody's entitled to their point. We will push back. That's the whole purpose of it. And if you do enjoy civilized dialogue from both sides of the aisle, in a respectful way, this is what we do. So follow the program. By the way, this is the backup program. So we normally have sometimes as much as 2 to 3 times as many people as we have in here now. And that's on the main page. The main page is down due to some banning bullshit. We got about 3 more days left. So if you want to follow the main page or follow this page, the main page is the Handsome Liberal spelled correctly. If you notice this page, the last L is missing, so you're on a backup account. Looking in the comments, can we get an actual educated Republican to make sense of these political points? Look, let's not suggest any of the guests are uneducated. Folks have a difference of opinion. My last guest believes that, about to say 9/11, maybe that also, but believes that January 6th was a hoax. He's not the only one. Tucker Carlson with his broadcast when he was on Fox News showing that some officers were letting people in. Yours truly, I watched a hell of a lot of coverage on January 6th. And even though I don't lean right, I lean left. I don't watch a lot of Fox, but I did watch Tucker Carlson's coverage. And I will say, there was enough there to make you wonder why we didn't see this. I do believe a hell of a lot of them stormed the Capitol. Some of them had bad intentions, but they did deliberately leave out the part where folks were being let in. If you watch the January 6th hearings committee, they left that out, and it should not have been. They had clear-cut footage of cops letting people in. QAnon Shaman, for instance, being let in. He surrounded 4 or 5, if not more, Capitol Police officers, and they're just letting them have a tour of the building. Could have easily arrested him. They were not outnumbered or anything. They could have easily arrested that guy. That is a worthy discussion to have. Not suggesting it's a hoax, but that is a worthy discussion to have, is that some of these folks were not acting horrible. They were being let in by the Capitol Police, and that was not covered with Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney's in Nancy Pelosi's coverage. That should have been brought up. That's a legitimate point to make. I think that is what ultimately led to that QAnon Shaman guy being released. They didn't want to show the corrupt cops, but they got released anyway. Yeah, and that's another issue, is that for the Capitol Police that let them in, they should be relieved of duty and basically jailed, because you're letting these people in while your radio is going off on the other side of the building that we're being overrun. That can't be. There are cops that need you on backup. Why the hell are you standing around this one dude when the radio is full with people screaming, the lawn is loaded with people coming toward the building? That shouldn't have happened. Some of them folks should be relieved of duty, if not in prison for that. I honestly don't think the cops were corrupt. I think they were overrun. Well, whatever the case may be, I get it. You're overrun. I get it. But you can't just stand there. And by the way, speaking of being overrun, some of you probably have heard about the Parkland, Florida police officer today, the one that stood down when that school was being shot up, took refuge outside by a pillar while the kids were being murdered inside. He was found not guilty. They were trying to criminally charge him. So, and that will end up doing a show on that. What do you think should happen if a cop doesn't do anything to help your kids out when he has a gun and training outside of the damn school? Looking in the comments real quick. Come on, man. Everyone knows cops cannot get overrun. You cannot outrun the radio. Yeah, you can. 20, 30,000 strong, you can definitely put the cops at odds. That was a huge, humongous crowd at the Capitol. And they could call for backup and all of that. I get your point, but that takes time to mobilize all of that. They're being overrun now. And you can't just open fire on this huge crowd, because they were already beating their ass. If they had opened fire on that crowd, they would have killed some of those folks. They would have actually taken their lives. I strongly believe that. They were overrun and instructed to stand down so as to not provoke the rioters and escalate things. Probably true. That's why you have many African Americans suggesting that they got preferential treatment. Because I don't believe if it was African Americans doing that, they would have had the same call over the radio. I don't believe that. That's not accurate. Those cops moved the gates. Whatever the case may be, it does appear as if the cops were friendly to the folks in there. Whereas you see the African American cop running up the steps, and they're chasing him. He's not being friendly. He could have done the same shit. He could have gave him a tour guide like they gave QAnon. He didn't do that. He had his stick in his hand. He was a good example of what it looks like to be overrun. But those cops around QAnon Shaman, they didn't look like they were overrun. They looked like they were inviting the dude in. Nevertheless, folks, unfortunately, I am burning up in this damn vehicle. I appreciate you guys rolling with your boy. I'm going to go ahead and terminate this live. Besides, World News is on, and I watch a hell of a lot of that. Do appreciate you rolling with me. 68,000 likes. Can't ask you any more than that if you wanted to tap the screen on your way out. Real quick, you think the Capitol doesn't have a special code for overtaking the Capitol? Come on, man. Usbert, sometimes the solution to something can be simpler than you thought. There's been a hell of a lot of things that have happened in this country where you would have thought it was that easy to do that. So I agree with you. You would think the Capitol building would be secured like Fort Knox. Apparently it's not. Sometimes shit can be easier than you think it is. But on its face, you would think that building would be more secure than that. But I don't believe that those senators, even the Republican ones that are being ushered out, Mike Pence taken out of the basement and shit. No, they were being overran. They were scared. You see pictures of McCarthy running and shit. They were scared. They truly were scared. And you even see the video of Nancy Pelosi phoning Mike Pence, forgetting all politics aside and telling Nancy Pelosi with all of her experience in Washington, telling Mike Pence, don't tell anybody where you are. When you see the phone call between Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, it was pretty clear she was speaking in concern for that man. All politics aside, they are as far as day and night on the scale politically. But when she was talking to that guy, she was giving him instructions on how to stay safe. She wasn't, no hatred at all. She was looking out for him. And I will submit to you this, the call that she gave him should have came from Trump, his running mate. Mike Pence said he didn't hear from Trump for 4 days after January 6th. There's no excuse for that shit. He's on TV being ushered out by the Secret Service for his protection. Didn't check on him at all. There's no excuse for that, no matter if you think it's a hoax or not. There was no excuse for that shit. Anyhow, appreciate you guys tuning in. It's your boy Tim, the Handsome Liberal. See you next time.